Welcome to World Crypto Network. My name is Leslie Frost, and today we're joined by Julia Tourianski, who will be talking about the Silk Road trial, Ross Ulbricht, and what's going on in New York at the moment. So, Julia, would you like to tell us a bit about what's been happening so far?
Watch the video. Basically Ross Ulbricht is on trial for being the Dread Pirate Roberts and starting a giant drug market. This is from the state's perspective. And there's been a twist, and there's been a huge twist because the defense is now bringing up Karpeles, who they actually suspected of being the man in charge of the investigation who used to work at O'Hare. He's a special agent. He was investigating Karpeles for 2 years, thinking that he was DPR, and there's way more linkage to him being DPR than there's to Ross. Ross was only investigated for just over a month, and so we're gonna tomorrow we're gonna get the defense's closing and see their argument and see why. I don't know if they're gonna present their opinion of why they thought that they switched suspects, but it seems a little bit like they're just trying to pin it on someone to pass their ridiculous laws to close the internet down.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, Karpeles.
A very detailed breakdown in my video, so that would be really good. And then I'm going to do a second video after this week's over.
Okay, so Karpeles basically was in charge of Mt. Gox, who and that was a big case basically because there was a lot of money that went missing basically, and no one knows where it went. And so they're basically saying that he was possibly Dread Pirate Roberts, and
right. They found the 18 million on Ross's laptop, but the defense is arguing that Ross was, an investor in Bitcoin from a very early time, and 18 million is pennies compared to what he would have made as DPR in the Silk Road. So where's all the rest of the money? So they're just saying that 18 million is just his money, it's nothing to do with running a website or anything. Now, also, there's been some trolling about Karpeles, and I think he's fueling some of it, saying, "Oh, you libertarians, you anarchists, were supporting Ross Ulbricht because it's a free market website, but now that it's Karpeles, you want him condemned and this and that." No one has said that. No one has said that. This is Ross's trial, and in our opinion, he's an innocent man, whether he is DPR, whether he isn't. Now, if he isn't DPR, that's even. Well, they did say he started the website, but if he isn't DPR throughout, that's great because it'll be easier for him to get off. If he is DPR, he's still innocent in our eyes because he just ran an honest website. Now, the difference is if Karpeles is DPR, first of all, it's not his trial, so it's arbitrary whether we think that he should go to jail for it or not, okay? And even if he was on trial for it, I don't think he should go to jail for running Silk Road. The difference is Karpeles is an asshole, and nobody likes him, and he stole millions of dollars from people. So that's why we're like, oh, awesome. We hope that it's him so that he can, deal with this stuff instead of Ross. That's the difference. There's no moral conundrum. There's no inconsistency. So just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, so basically, also I heard that they're not allowed in the trial to talk about the libertarian view. They're basically not allowed to talk about what Ross's personal views are politically.
Yeah, it's very limited. And even when they were bringing up Karpeles, they were objecting. They were objecting to even bringing up this whole idea, even though it was part of the investigation for 2 years. It's pretty relevant. So the whole thing, the judge. I think the Liberty Beat boys said it best. They said, "Oh well, the judge and the prosecution are paid by the same people, so
Yeah, and there was also something about when the jury was chosen, they were actually asked whether or not they knew about jury nullification or whether or not they knew that there was someone giving them pamphlets.
There's been efforts in New York to enlighten people of jury nullification and jurors' rights, and there's been posters and pamphlets being passed out and stuff, and some of the jurors got pamphlets maybe earlier in the week, maybe earlier that month. They were doing it for months. And the judge asked them specifically, did you get a pamphlet? And yes. Did you read the pamphlet? No. Please put the pamphlet aside and don't open it or read it. Can you do that? Yes. That conversation happened about 3 times.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. It's like, yeah, it's crazy that they actually think that if you're well informed somehow, then you're going to be a worse juror or something. And the problem is like when, yeah.
They don't want jury nullification, and the law is ridiculous. Nobody believes in the drug war, and that's a real threat to them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like Ross now sort of he's becoming sort of like a hero for both the Bitcoin or like the crypto network, and also for the people who are libertarians, because basically he's representing all these ideas in this one trial, and it's not just about him as an individual. It's about also like the verdict, whether or not that's going to set precedent in the future for people like they can basically sue people for having a website. And then whoever does something wrong on that website, the person running the website can actually get charged for whatever they're doing.
Yeah, it expands liability and transferred intent, and it's already happening. It was happening with InfoWars a little bit already. Like, remember that guy that shot up the parking lot, and he said he was going to do it on his forums, and then they were trying to like pin it on Alex somehow. And they're doing it with FedEx. It's not just internet. They're doing it with FedEx. There's the government, I think, indicted them for drug smuggling narcotics, because people from Canada were transferring pharmaceuticals into America illegally using FedEx, and FedEx asked the government to give them a list of people to check, of companies. Okay, we can check these packages, we'll comply. And instead, they just indicted them.
And then also that, but that's the whole problem. Like, if we get that kind of verdict, then basically they're gonna be self-surveying. They're gonna be actually making people not talk about certain things or do certain things on their website. So basically, it's just gonna be like this huge panopticon. Like, whenever you have a website, you don't dare to actually let anyone do anything there, because you are actually liable for what they're doing.
Yeah, someone's gonna write a comment on my website like, "Oh, I'm gonna commit said terrorist act on said area," and then I'm going to be held liable for harboring it on my website. It's serious stuff, and like people need to wake up and get a grip about it, and wishful thinking.
Also, I think that the whole point is that the state kind of wants you to be doing their job in a way, because they're basically saying, well, if we can sue you for whatever is happening on your website or whatever, so people are going to be working as their own police officers. They're going to be surveying themselves, and the problem is like you even made that comment at some point that, well, then we can sue the state if someone is selling drugs on a public sidewalk. Well, then we can basically sue the state, because
we should all get together and do that. It would be like someone sold me drugs on a public sidewalk, and I had a bad come down, and I'm gonna sue you for 1 second.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, the whole point of this trial, I think, is the most important thing to know, that this is not just about Ross Ulbricht, and it's not just about the Silk Road. It is about the fact that we can be setting a precedent, so people cannot actually just act like, the internet in itself is amazing, because people can actually speak more or less freely, and of course, like, you have forums that do some kind of self-surveillance, or they do limit what people can do, but that is up to the website itself, and actually having laws that are going to say, well, you are going to be liable. So suddenly we have people that can't actually express themselves, even though you have a public forum.
Where was I? Oh yeah. Anyways, there's tiers of censorship, right? And government censorship, it's like the least of our worries. So there's government censorship, there's censorship from corporate entities, then there's censorship, well, it all ends up at self-censorship, right? So you have social censorship before that, where you don't want to say anything because of your peers, and then there's like the last one where there's self-censorship, because you don't want to say anything because of the government and corporations, and because of your peers, and because you're just scared. and you change who you are, and you stop saying what you actually feel. And I already feel that way. I don't say half the stuff that I'd like to say online or in person. Maybe with some specific people, but you know, there's people on Twitter that have been thrown in jail for using language that other people don't like. This is already happening. It's just going to be happening. Like right now, it's very strong with that whole liberal mindset, right? You can't say this, you can't say that, it's offensive, and people actually get charged with this. It's like hate speech, right? Well, now it's like anything that the government thinks is, you know, not in their interest, they'll slowly be able to use liability and transferred intent to prevent you from even thinking about saying it.
Yeah, and I think this is really, really an important issue now because, for instance, I mean, even both in Denmark and in France now, like people have actually been arrested for saying things that they're saying is hate speech. But they're saying basically, like, you know, the attacks that happened in France, they were talking about, well, you know, we don't want these terrorists, they're going to like limit our freedom, they're going to limit our freedom of speech, and then suddenly the government comes in and actually does limit the freedom of speech because it's like, well, yeah, you can say something that's unpopular, that's the point of freedom of speech, that you can say things that people don't want to hear, because if freedom of speech was just about saying nice things, well, then we wouldn't really need it, would we? And so this, like, it really pans out to a whole lot of different areas that you have to be able to express yourself. You have to be able to criticize whatever the status quo is. Otherwise, you cannot actually say you're free because you're actually going to be self-monitoring to the point of actually not being yourself.
Yeah, let's not sugarcoat it. It's thought crime, right? Your speech is expressed thought. So, I mean, what kind of world are we living in here? And even in my video, like, this whole liberal attitude. I mean, I made a comment saying I was happy that there were, I think, 4 African American jurors, because African Americans are the demographic that are touched, especially black youths, that are touched by the drug war. Most people incarcerated for drugs are young black Americans. Apparently, pointing out that the American prison system is racist. Apparently, I'm racist for saying that. I guess Lil Wayne is racist because like half his songs, well, his old album, not his albums now, but one of his first albums, half his songs on there are about that, the racist America and the prison systems and how black youths are rotting in jail over nothing. But that Lil Wayne's racist too.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is also, like, whenever, like, you hear the government always say, well, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Well, the problem is that they are incarcerating people for crimes that most people don't consider to be crimes. For instance, drug crimes, or like anything that is a victimless crime. And this is also, like, in the case of Ross, it's like there are no victims. They cannot say that there are any victims, basically. So they're putting a man, the only victim here is Ross, basically, because he's the only one being incarcerated.
Those people who say that, let's take off the doors of your house, let's take off the shower curtain, let's take off the bathroom door. You have nothing to hide, honey, right? You have nothing to hide. I think having something to hide is a sign of character. And if you have nothing to hide, then I have nothing to say to you.
Exactly. And that's the thing, that you should, and it really is, it comes down not whether or not you have something to say or hide. It's about permission. That if I want to share information about me and personally, like I have views, it's about permission, that other people have to have permission to see these things or hear these things. It's not about me having something to hide. It's like, exactly, like, I don't want someone to take the door off my bathroom door or whatever. It's about me saying, okay, you are allowed to actually have this information. And especially when you have, you know, people who actually want to punish me for things that I don't consider to be crimes, of course I will have something to hide, because I want to hide it from them, but it's not something morally that I want to hide from anyone.
Yeah. I just don't think it's any of their business. Well, I mean, we all agree on that. The government needs to step the fuck back.
Exactly, and pipe the fuck down is what it needs to do. But yeah, it's like, yeah, just coming back to the trial, I mean, I think really, like, people need to understand that it is something that is going to affect not just, not even just in the U.S. I think this is something that people all around the world, and especially libertarians around the world, need to really, really look into, because it is about how these ideas, once you have one government or like one trial that sort of sets a precedent, is going to spread around the world. And because we are a global society now, and especially now with the internet and all that kind of stuff, it will spread. And it's not a good precedent to be setting that you suddenly have the U.S. saying, well, this is something that we agree on, that we want to hold people liable if something happens on their turf, basically. And also, the whole idea with Bitcoin getting sort of a bad rep for some reason, because they say, oh, well, Bitcoin has been used to sell drugs. Well, dollars have been used to sell and buy drugs, and every other thing that you can possibly imagine, and somehow they don't talk about dollars being tainted somehow.
Did you see the headline the other day of Obama? And yeah, Obama, he's attacking encryption now. They think encryption shouldn't be allowed because the police should be able to access your devices if they need to.
Yeah, there was David Cameron. He gave him that bright idea.
He was agreeing. Obama agrees with Cameron on encryption or something, right? Which, before I went to the court, I made sure I just got a new phone. I got an Android, and the night before I encrypted that. Motherfucker, because I'm not leaving my phone with feds in a holding room unencrypted. But actually, the guys that are putting, scanning me and like all this, like I made friends with them by the end of the week, and I'm like, hey, like they get me through real quick, and then I told two of them about, he's like, why are you here? And then I told them all about the case. I'm like, wow, that's really important. That's really interesting. I should look into that. I'm like, yeah, you should. Please do. So I mean, these people, like, we have to remember. Like the government isn't like some scary monster, It's a combination of people. There are top actors, but they're nothing without everyone else. And people, they just want the job, and they just want the security, and they want to be taken care of. But I mean, if you actually just talk to them like human beings, and then you're not aggressing, and you're talking as we, not you against me, as we're all people. They really. Most of them listen. They really do. And when you say it in such a way that they will look dumb or silly or ignorant for dismissing you, then they won't. They might actually perk up. And even the jury, most of them are government workers. They're just regular people, and the government's so big, like everyone's a government worker these days. They seemed... There were some points of the trial where they were definitely bored, like when they were explaining what a forum is for an hour, and even Ross, at the end of that day, Ross turns around to his family, and he does this. He goes, like, he was like, really? And I understand they have to explain it and set it all up, but it was just, oh god. But a lot of during the Bitcoin explanation and encryption and all of this, like the jury was like really looking at their screens and like really trying to absorb it, and it looked like it was news to them, and this whole brand new world was opening up to them. And I think because of those things, they really are realizing how big of a deal this trial is. Like, I don't think they're like, oh, I think they really are realizing that this is a huge issue and a huge deal. And I don't know, maybe it's wishful thinking, but just by reading their faces, I think they're intrigued. They're very intrigued, and they think it's important. And I'm really looking forward to being there tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that when we're talking about jury of your peers, like, they're not really his peers because they don't really understand what it's about, and I think it's very easy to make it sound like really, really scary. It's like, oh, like the secret website, and it's like on this secret forum and blah, 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 and it's really not that scary. It's just basically just an eBay on a Tor network. It's not really that huge.
I mean, the conversation with the drug war needs to change. Drugs are great, and people need to get over it. And it's funny, another funny thing I found was they really, really concentrated on MDMA and all that. MDMA, heroin, crack, cocaine, and amphetamines. They really concentrated on the like main the scary drugs, right? most of the drugs sold on Silk Road was pot. And the one time that was shown to be apparent was when they showed the classification list and they had the numbers beside it of how many ads there were, and like pot was like 10,000 or something crazy, right? And the rest were like halved and less, and like heroin was like really low, like, you know. So I hope they noticed that. I really hope the jury noticed that.
Yeah, exactly, and I really hope, like, again, this trial can really make it obvious for people that it isn't that scary. It is really just people, and even a person like Ross, like, you can see, like, he's not this, you know, they call him like this super mastermind. It's like they make him sound like this evil person. It's like, look at this guy, like, no, it's like he's just a person, and he's just trying to give a forum for people to actually exchange ideas.
Thank God the guy's like really handsome and has a beautiful smile. I mean, like, he's a charming boy, so that's gonna work in his favor for sure. He's not a scary looking guy, you know.
All right, Chris here, my producer, he is actually telling me that we have some questions. If you'd like to answer some questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, okay, so we have a question from Anna Kurth. She says, have the allegations that Ross ordered a hit on someone been a topic in the trial in the last week? I assume they made their way onto the list of charges, right?
Yeah, they brought it up, and then the defense basically dismissed it, saying there's no bodies, there's nothing, there's no indictments for it. And since then, it wasn't brought up. And I think the prosecution will be getting to it. Right now, they're just concentrating on how they caught him and the Silk Road specifically. They haven't gone into the hit conversation, but there's an issue that's arisen from the very first day where the prosecution wants to read. I think, okay, this is what I'm assuming because it seems logical. There's an issue about how to read some of the evidence. So when it's text conversations, the defense has objected to the prosecution reading it back and forth. Like, basically the prosecution wants to take that conversation where DPR wants to put a hit on someone, which, first of all, that conversation is so easily fake because it's just a chat. And they want to read it back and forth, right? One guy pretending to be DPR, one guy pretending to be the hitman. So, which makes it very theatrical, and the way that you do your the way your voice is and your levels and all this, it can make it very misleading to the jury whether it happened or not. Now the defense wants the jury to just see the text and read for themselves because there's emoticons, and then because it's in the context of online. They've come to, and the judge has been very not understanding about this. She's been very difficult about it, and what they ended up agreeing on was they can read it, just like one guy from the prosecution can just read it without any with just like a stable voice, just read it as is, and even make note of the emoticons. And they will let the jury know that this is a text conversation, it just happened on the internet. So I agree with the defense. I think they should just have to read it for themselves because it's in the context of the internet, and you don't want any kind of subconscious action going on, thinking when someone's reading out loud to you, thinking that it actually happened. That's why your daddy reads to you when you're a kid. He reads out loud to you in voices and things, and then your imagination runs wild and thinks it actually happened, and there's hobbits and wizards, you know. It's very basic kind of psychology. So hopefully, you know, I think that's going to happen next week.
So we have another question, and this time from Ajan in Thailand. He wants to know who signed the original complaint against Ross. Is the actual prosecution claiming injury or loss on behalf of someone?
No, I don't think there's no complaint. The way that they began the investigation is because there was an influx of drug traffic through O'Hare Airport, which is an international shipment airport. So they just noticed like a huge increase of people sending drugs to each other, and then they opened an investigation about it. Then they investigated Carpelis for 2 years because they linked it back to Silk Road. They bought $7,000 worth of ecstasy off of Silk Road, and they tested it, and they bought some coke, all this stuff. They bought a bunch of drugs and they tested it, so they know that it's actually that. And the investigation's job was basically to link that this package was sent from a Silk Road vendor, and they were trying to match like that little like stickers and advertisements and the branding is what I mean. So that was their job, and in their mind they did that. That's why the investigation was opened. There was no complaint against DPR for harm. Nobody called the police force and said, my son bought some drugs online and died, or like someone killed my son. You know, like there's no bodies, there's no harm, nothing, there's no victim here.
Yeah, it's a good use of taxpayer money, $7,000 worth of MDMA.
Yeah, I think the investigator had a lot of friends. I wonder where those pills are at. Woo.
So we've got a question from Roman Still, who says, who are the primary witnesses giving testimony?
Right, that's the only one we've had so far, and he's still being cross-examined tomorrow. I don't know the witnesses. Like, I don't know who the witnesses are going to be. And actually, I know that there's going to be a boy who was Ross's friend, or like friend from university, who apparently Ross asked for programming advice because like he was having a hard time with Silk Road or something, and then he admitted to his friend that he was DPR. It sounds highly unlikely to me, so we'll see what the hell that's about. So I know that's going to be a witness, and I know there's going to be a few specialists. There's going to be like a Bitcoin specialist explaining how Bitcoin works and all this. And it was really funny actually when they were explaining how Bitcoin works. Like by the end of it, Ross got his lawyer to object, and then they had a little like, you know, whispering, and then they just decided to leave it. But I think Ross was like really frustrated with the way that the prosecution explained Bitcoin, which just shows like how much of an evangelist he might be.
And Jamie Nelson, who's a fan of yours, I believe, wants to know that do you personally know Ross, or just from the legal battles? Did you know him before the trial, I guess?
No, I didn't. I never met Ross. I only know Ross from my early days when I was in Silk Road and I found out what Bitcoin was. I never bought anything from there, unfortunately, because my dealer came through. But no, I don't know Ross. I had no idea like that he could be DPR. My friend Amir Taki, he told me that ages ago, you know, when Silk Road was first up, he emailed DPR, and they had a really lovely conversation about politics and philosophy. And then months later, he emailed DPR again, and that DPR had no recollection of the conversation, and his tone was completely different. He was not this insightful, deep human being that Amir spoke to like the year prior, which to me is just you know, secondhand proof that there's not just one of them. But no, yeah, I don't know that. I don't know him. I have no connection to that. I'm just doing my job, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I heard that as well, that there's probably been several people that have been sort of acting as DPR, and I think that there was like talks about it even when when it was open, like Silk Road, people were talking about it. So like yeah, like the things that you sort of use in crypto, like do you use like BitMessage and things like that? Do you have any like favorite sort of avenues that you use when you use crypto?
I used to use BitMessage, but then like they got some hack. I don't know, something happened to them. I use encryption. I use encryption. I encrypt my phone. I use Tor. You know, I don't want to admit to too much. Yeah, I have used Tor, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yes, we can neither confirm nor deny anything. All right. Well, I think that was it. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for all the help you're actually giving Ross and everyone.
If you guys want a link to their website, the freeross.org, they need help. Like it's $35,000 a week for them. And with the Bitcoin price, you know, went down. I mean, they cashed out a lot of it, but they still, you know, they didn't cash it out quite in time. And so that would really help. And if you want to donate to me, if you like my videos, just to support my channel, feel free to do that. I think Chris is linking my address there as well. that's it. Yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. I'll do another video, and I'm feeling very positive about the whole thing. I really am. But I'm also very naive.
Well, I'm also feeling very positive about it, and we're gonna link put all the links beneath the video, and yeah, we're looking forward to hearing updates. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you guys. Thanks. Take care.
Take care.